All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Thank you so much for attending part 2 of my two-part bootcamp series focused on building, selling, co-managed IT services. So this is a brand new bootcamp we're delivering today. Part 1 was delivered a couple of months ago, and in part 1, we discussed what co-managed services are, why this is a great time to consider, launching this type of initiative for your MSP, if this isn't a market that you're pursuing currently. And we also discussed, the top co-managed programs that we're seeing MSPs take to market today. And we also went through the different features and services along with some suggested pricing. So that was all covered in part 1. So now in today's bootcamp, part 2, we're going to build on that. And we're going to discuss how to actually develop a go-to-market strategy to help get the new programs that you built in part 1 out there so you can start making some money on it. So if you haven't attended any of my boot camps or office hours in the past, I'll just take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Hammond, and I'm the head nerd that focuses on, really all things sales and marketing related. I've been with Enable for a little while, started back in 2004. I was one of 2 partner development specialists, and my role back then, I was hired to help our partners with the business, sales, and marketing side of their practice. So since then, I've moved into a lot of different roles, different sales roles, account management roles within Enable and SolarWinds, with my last role being principal account manager for our elite and super elite partners. So you can see my contact details on the screen, my email there, the QR code, because I'm on LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, we should be linked together. So please use that QR code and connect with me. And I wanted to add this slide in just to kind of take a moment, just now that I've been in this role for 2.5, 3 years, to remind everyone who participates in my boot camps of the training journey that I strive to take my partners through to help them grow and develop their business. So the training journey starts with my first boot camp, Cracking the Code to Growing Your MSP. And the idea behind this bootcamp is really to provide partners with guidance on how to create an actionable roadmap for growth, which has been modeled after what our best in class and most mature MSPs are currently doing. So, if an MSP was interested in how to grow their practice, kind of take it to the next level, this bootcamp, I review the different best practices that the top MSPs in the industry have implemented within their own MSP that have worked and worked well for them. And generally part of that MSP growth planning process involves a re-examination of your programs and your pricing that you're currently, putting out there into the market that you're selling to your customers and your prospects. So I have 3 boot camps just dedicated to this topic. How to build security programs, how to price your security programs, and then how to sell your new security programs to customers and new prospects. Or maybe as part of your MSP growth planning process, you want to move up market and start offering co-managed IT services. If that's the case, then an MSP can participate in what I'm delivering today, my 2-part bootcamp series focused on how to get started with the co-managed approach. So again, a few months ago, I delivered part 1, which is really focused on how to build and price your co-managed offerings. And then today, we're talking about how to build your go-to-market strategy so that you can get your first set of co-managed clients if you don't have any today. And then once an MSP has their programs, they have their pricing in place, and they find that they're ready to take these to market, that's when we want to start developing a lead gen strategy so we can start filling the top of our marketing funnel. And so I have a bootcamp series called Cracking the Code to Lead Gen, where part 1 focuses on building out your marketing strategy, specifically focusing on the 8-step process around creating a digital marketing strategy for your MSP. And then part 2 of the series focuses on the importance of building a telesales motion for your MSP. And we outline in that bootcamp how do you actually build an SDR motion for your MSP. And then once kind of the systems and the processes for lead gen are in place, there's going to come a time where you're going to have a prospect who is going to reach out and engage. And so I have a 3-part bootcamp series focused on the MSP sales process. So part 1 of the series really focuses on, okay, great, your marketing worked, you got a lead who wants to speak with you, now what do you do? And so in that bootcamp, I provide a structure around, what sort of qualification questions to ask when you're meeting with a prospect for the very first time to see if there's a fit. And then if there is a fit, you progress to the second stage of the sales process, which is the assessment phase. And then I have a boot camp here that focuses on the importance of establishing a prospect assessment process. And I review the steps that should be included in that assessment process, so you can really work to figure out, what gaps exist in your prospect's business. What risks are they currently exposed to, which will help you put together a compelling sales proposal that your prospect will sign. And then that leads to the 3rd and final boot camp of the series that really focuses on how to create and present a proper proposal, reviewing, how to respond and address kind of the most common sales objections that you may get at this stage, with the end goal of securing the contract and winning the client over to your MSP. And then the last boot camp of the training journey really focuses on the account management motion of an MSP's practice. Because after working so diligently to win clients, you don't want to soon see them leave for another MSP. So that boot camp is called Cracking the Code to Building Loyal Customers, and it focuses on how to create and implement an account management motion, where I talk about the importance of conducting regular executive business reviews, or you might call them QBRs or TBRs. I like the term executive business reviews, with your customers, with the goal of creating loyal and profitable customers, because the selling doesn't stop once the contract is signed. So really kind of, wanted to start putting this slide in as people are starting to attend my boot camps. If you're starting, kind of right in the middle of my series, this kind of gives you an idea of where we are today, what boot camps kind of preceded today that you may want to go back into the Institute and revisit, and then give you an idea of where this fits and what's coming. And I just wanted to throw a reminder in that even though we do deliver boot camps live throughout the year, they are available on demand as well if the live schedule doesn't align with your schedule. So to access all of our on-demand boot camps, you just have to go into the Partner Success Center. I have a QR code there for easy access. Once you're logged in, and if you never logged in before, you may need to register for the first time. You just click on the MSP Institute button, and then you just scroll down just a little bit, and you'll see the Head Nerd section there. And you just click on my picture, and it will actually bring up all of my boot camps that I have recorded to date. So just wanted to throw in a couple of those reminder slides, especially as we have new MSPs that might be joining my boot camps for the very first time. All right, so as I said, this is a follow-up session to the session I gave a couple of months ago on co-managed services. So hopefully the 25% that said no, but we're thinking about it, you went and already seen or participated in part 1, because part 1 was really where I did review the top programs, the features, the pricing. This is really all about the building the go-to-market strategy. But, why are we continuing to talk about co-managed services? Why is this something that is such a big topic at the moment? And I believe it's a big topic because it is at this time, I think, one of the biggest growth drivers for MSPs currently. And, we want to be able to do what we can to help our partners capture a lot of this market for themselves. So, while in the first session, we talked about the co-managed model and we outlined the most popular programs, today we're going to talk about how to build your go-to-market strategy. How do you take those new programs that you've built and how do you go out, promote them and start selling them? So what we're going to be covering today is the 7-step process to building a go-to-market strategy so we can launch our co-managed services line of business. And so through this process, we're going to review the ideal client profile, the ICP for co-managed services. What kind of companies are the best fit for co-managed services? We're going to talk about the problems facing mid and upper enterprise companies today and how you can use these struggles to create your key messaging. And you can use it to, create your value prop statements that you're going to be wanting to use within your sales and marketing outreach. We're going to be talking about, how do you develop your campaign and how do you select, what marketing channels to use to kind of move your prospects through the marketing and sales funnel. And for this, I've developed what I'm calling a co-managed services event in a box as one campaign idea to help generate awareness and jumpstart your co-managed line of business. And we're going to go through, what's been included in that to assist you with your marketing and sales efforts. And then we're going to go through some of the most common objections that your sales team may hear as they begin talking about co-managed and promoting your co-managed. And I have some sample responses that can be used to kind of help address, some of the concerns and dispel, some of the myths that might be circulating out there around the concept of co-managed. And then we're going to review some common key performance indicators, KPIs, that you could be tracking to help measure and gauge the success of your co-managed marketing and sales campaigns so that you can make improvements and adjustments for next time, because there should always be a next time. So ultimately, at the end of today's session, if you don't have any co-managed clients today, taking you through, where and how do you start? What marketing and sales strategies could you implement to help you develop a good, successful co-managed line of business over maybe the next 12 to 18 months. All right, so before we get too deep into things, what is a go-to-market strategy? So a go-to-market strategy, it is a step-by-step plan for launching a new product, a new service, or it can be used to expand into a new market with an existing service or product. And so it sets your initiative up for success by answering, some of the key questions. What product or service are you selling? What unique problem does it solve? Who is your ideal client? What pain points do they experience? Where will you sell your product or service? What markets do you want to pursue? What does demand and what does competition look like in those markets? And then how are you going to reach your target customers and create that demand? And so taking the time to build a good go-to-market strategy, that's what's going to help ensure that you're looking at all the angles to avoid costly mistakes. And this is different from a marketing plan. A marketing plan really details how you're going to execute your overall marketing strategy. A marketing plan is like a long-term approach to help you achieve, whatever your marketing objectives are. But a go-to-market strategy, on the other hand, that is tailored for a specific launch, focused on a certain activity over, a prescribed period of time. And so that is most appropriate here when we're talking about how to launch your new co-managed services, your programs that you've just developed. And so there's 7 steps that we're going to be taking everyone through today when crafting a go-to-market strategy. Step 1 starts with, it seems always to be step 1, defining your target audience and crafting what your ideal client profile looks like, that ICP. So it involves, clearly understanding who our target audience is by, looking at, who's experiencing the problems that my new co-managed services can help solve. And then step 2 requires us, to kind of do our homework a little bit, research our competition, research the demand, because now that you've identified your target audience, you want to figure out if there's enough demand in your market for that and not too much competition for you. And then step 3 is all about identifying the problems being experienced by your target audience and how can you, use these struggles to develop your value proposition. How can you use your co-managed services to address, a lot of those common pain points that your target audience is experiencing and solve problems to make their lives better. And then step 4 is all about creating your key messaging. So you can develop the value statements where you can outline kind of the benefits and the outcomes your target audience can expect to receive by partnering with you. And this is based on, kind of doing the work that we did in step 3 and really working to identify, your client's main purchasing triggers, because every buyer's journey starts with a purchasing trigger, starts with a frustration, because you need these so that you can highlight the real value behind your services that you can provide. And then step 5 is deciding what marketing channels you're going to use to bring awareness, create that demand, and how you're going to move potential customers down through the marketing sales funnel. Step 6 is all about creating your sales plan, because the goal of a go-to-market strategy is to sell. And so our goal today out of this is to sell co-managed services and bring new customers into your MSP. So it is essential to, figure out how you'll sell into your target audience and then turn your target audience in, prospects who are going to want to buy from you. And then lastly, step 7, setting our goals. These are the specific targets that we're looking to achieve within a defined timeline to help us measure how well our go-to-market strategy is working at bringing new co-managed MRR clients into our MSP. And so we're going to use this as a framework today, and we're going to review how to apply this 7-step process and use it to build a go-to-market strategy for your new co-managed services that you developed back in part 1. But, so putting this all together, kind of part 1 and part 2, I've created what I've called the co-managed digital playbook. This is a brand new resource that has been created for our partners and MSPs to use. I've designed it in a way to kind of be your A to Z guide for building, pricing, marketing, selling your new co-managed initiative. So a lot of the questions that you may have and the details that I went into in part 1 and then going into today, you can find all of it within this digital playbook. Lots of suggestions, lots of ideas. So there's a lot of work that went into this. I'm very proud of it. So to gain access, I've made it available in the handout section of the GoToWebinar. So hopefully you should see a copy of it there. If for some reason you have issues downloading the playbook or accessing it, just type playbook in the questions panel and I'll be sure to get a copy over to you. If you do happen to have version 1, because I know there's a few people out there, MSPs out there that might have version 1, this is a brand new edition. So make sure that you do download the version that is in the handout section, because it is completely updated with all of this go-to-market marketing and promotion and messaging. It's not in version 1. So this is the most up-to-date version that's out there. And also within this playbook, there is an entire go-to-market strategy, like a whole planning guide for you to use to help you document, your thoughts and your ideas and your plans. And so it basically acts as a summary for what we're going to be talking about in today's session. So this is part of the playbook, but I've also included it as a handout as well for easy, quick access. So again, make sure you download that before the end of today's session. And if you have any issues downloading it or accessing it, just type planning guide into the questions panel. And again, I'll be sure to get a copy of that over to you. So let's look at this framework now. So step 1, we're going to start by defining our target audience for our co-managed services. It starts with developing our ideal client profile so that you can use this to develop your dream list of prospects that you want to reach out to and connect with as you start building out your marketing and sales strategies. So when starting to design, any of your co-managed services campaign, you want to ensure that we're targeting and that we're attracting the right type of customers, because we want to make our launch of our new services as successful as it can be. And so to ensure that we are targeting the right type of prospect, it will help to first define your ideal client profile for co-managed services. So then you can use this to develop your list of prospects that you want to start marketing and selling to. And so the #1 criteria when we're starting to build out that ICP the organizations that you're targeting, they must have an internal IT administrator on staff, or like an IT director, an IT manager. Like, there has to be someone in the company that you can collaborate with, who knows how the company operates. They know how the network is set up, and they know all the different critical applications that are being used by the employees. If the prospect doesn't have any dedicated internal IT personnel on staff, then this isn't co-managed. This would be considered, that traditional managed services prospect. And then you would just be speaking to them about outsourcing, all that IT management over to you. But for the co-managed model to work, there has to be an IT resource present in-house. And then other things we want to think about when we're defining our ICP, obviously the industry or the vertical markets that you want to target. Some of the best verticals that partners have told us are great for co-managed services: healthcare, manufacturing, larger legal firms, larger accounting firms, smaller banks and financial institutions, the ones that maybe have like a one person IT department, professional services firms, private equity firms. I know that PE firms, they're not really a vertical, but partners that are delivering co-managed services have told me that PE firms are a great audience to target because of all of the M&A activity, all of the mergers and the acquisition activity that they're doing. And because of this, the internal tech team are having a very difficult time keeping up with it all, and they can't scale fast enough. So they can benefit from, someone coming in from the outside to assist them in helping them stay organized and to help with the integration of all the various networks together. And then the benefit is that every time that PE firm that you can align yourself with does another acquisition, they're more than likely going to call on you. So they also become a sort of a lead source for you, helping to connect you with new businesses in all sorts of different verticals. So I found that interesting when a couple MSPs told me that. And then also looking at nonprofit organizations. And you might be surprised to see nonprofits on this list, but they too are also turning out to be a really good industry to target, because during COVID, a lot of nonprofits, they went remote and they're choosing to stay remote. And when you think about what nonprofits do, right, their job is to raise money. And nowadays, a large part of their fundraising activities is done through social media and using different forms of social platforms. And so nonprofits, they're really out there in the digital world, which makes them, easy for the threat actors, those bad guys, to find them. And so they're becoming very highly sought after targets by the bad guys, because nonprofits are not really known for taking care of their technology investments. They're not known for taking technology seriously. A lot of times, just by their nature, their networks most of the time are kind of hobbled together. And so they make a great market for MSPs to target now for co-managed, because a lot of them don't have these large building lease payments any longer because they went remote, they're staying remote, so they're experiencing some budget cost savings there. And so now you have these firms that are 100, 200, 500 workers in size, in an industry that typically experiences high turnover anyway, working out of home offices that probably have highly questionable technology. And there are some very large nonprofits out there, but I know that MSPs typically don't like targeting nonprofits because of the pushback they may have received in the past. We don't have the money for that, or we don't have the budget for that. But it's just because a lot of times nonprofits they don't see the relevance when it comes to technology and the success of their nonprofit. But also, I think MSPs haven't done a really great job in the past of positioning their services to organizations like nonprofits. Nonprofits, they are budgeting, and they are budgeting for pretty big items, but they've never really been educated on the potential risk impacts before on their business. And especially since COVID, the risk is real. And so, MSPs should be going into nonprofits and saying, look, this is your risk level now. And so how is your team managing it? Because with our co-managed services, we can offer to help share that risk with you. So again, another interesting industry for co-managed that a couple of MSPs told me about. And then obviously looking at prospect size, generally, when you're first starting to move into co-managed space, speaking with different MSPs in the beginning, they just prefer to start off on a little bit on the smaller side, targeting organizations in kind of like the 100 to 250 to 300 employee range. And the reason being was it really is going to be important to pressure test yourself, pressure test your team, your offerings, pressure test your service delivery processes in the beginning, because you don't want to target too large of an organization at first until you're really sure that you have all the kinks worked out and that you're able to balance your traditional managed services with this new market. And then also looking at geographical location, are you wanting to keep it local, or maybe you wanting to broaden your geographical reach, maybe out to the county or state level. And then looking at the types of roles of personnel that you want to target. Are you, going to be targeting, IT directors, CTOs, general IT admins, or maybe are you going after the C-suite, like CEOs and CFOs, or maybe you want to go after both. And are you going to be targeting new logos, or do you happen to have existing customers that you can target for co-managed services? Possibly those, mid or upper enterprise clients that you have maybe where you've done one-off projects for them in the past. Or do you have some traditional managed services clients that they're growing and maybe they're reaching that threshold where they might be starting to feel that they're outgrowing your services? These customers, they might be starting to feel that they might be better off, maybe ending their contract with you and bring the IT function in-house. And so if you have customers like this, you definitely want to get ahead of, these types of sentiments, before you're caught off guard. Because when I was starting to develop this whole bootcamp series and I was speaking to a lot of MSPs about how they initially launched their co-managed services, a lot of partners told me that they kind of sort of fell into the co-managed model. And it was because of a couple of different things. One, their customers outgrew them and they were no longer a fit for their traditional managed services programs. And so the MSP, the partner, was really forced to be creative and come up with another arrangement in order to try and save the relationship and keep that business intact. As well, they had a few larger customers that they were working with on an as-needed basis, and these were types of customers that they just called in whenever they needed something. And so the MSP then proceeded to, help them, and then typically it was all done underneath a break-fix type of engagement. But the partner then figured out a way to secure a monthly MRR payment from them, because that's really what we want, right? We want that monthly MRR payment. But in neither of these cases did the partner actually consider what they were doing for these larger customers that was technically classified as co-managed. So it was interesting, as I was having these conversations, I said, oh, so you've been doing co-managed? And they're like, oh, I never thought of it that way. I guess in your definition, we were. So if you're finding that you have these types of customer relationships already within your own base, these are great customers to leverage to help you build out and refine maybe a more standardized or legitimate co-managed IT services model to help get you started. And I like to just call this the low-hanging fruit option. You already have that you already have that customer relationship. You're really just looking to solidify the co-managed services model with them to either, cement a new monthly MRR commitment from them, if you are only doing kind of time material work for them today, or use it to be proactive and get ahead of those growing customers who might be thinking that they no longer need you. And you can use the co-managed model to help redefine to retain that relationship. Because when it does come time to expand your co-managed services and you want to start going after new customers, you can then use these existing clients to help firm up your offerings. Again, going back to, we need to pressure test our service delivery. We need to pressure test our sales and marketing approaches. So we can use these existing clients as your guinea pigs so that when you are ready to go out and start targeting and going after net new clients, you've had the benefit of really getting all of your processes and those kinks worked out. And then you can always use these clients as well to help you with your marketing and sales promotion activities, because we can see, if they can be part of a case study for us that we can add to our website or our social feed. We can see if they can write some nice things about us on LinkedIn or on our Google business page. We can see if they can take some nice pictures with us, again, that we can post to our LinkedIn feed, because it's this type of social proof that's going to be critical when we want to start expanding our activities and start going after new clients. So again, just another target audience that maybe you didn't think about, to encourage you to be proactive, reach out to maybe those larger traditional managed services customers that you have, book an executive business review meeting with them to discuss some options, because you don't want to be blindsided and be told that, yeah, we were outgrowing you, we were looking for more responsiveness, and we thought the best way to get that is just to bring somebody in-house, and then you not knowing about any of this. So depending on how you develop and deliver your co-managed services, it's going to look and feel different based on the size of the organization that you're targeting and the type of internal IT setup that they have. And the key to successfully selling and marketing your co-managed services is understanding that there's generally 3 different types of internal IT departments out there that you're probably going to come across. And each department type is going to have its own set of unique requirements and challenges that are going to need addressing. And so the goal is, when you're talking to a CEO or you're talking to an IT director, try and get them to self-identify which type of IT department they currently have on premise. Because depending on how they self-identify, you can then use this, use this insight to kind of match and align your co-managed services to best meet, whatever their departmental or organizational goals are, and help solve their most pressing issues. So I have listed here the 3 most common, internal IT setups that you likely are going to come up against. The first one being kind of the top-heavy or the more strategic focused internal IT department. This is where the internal IT department, they have that CTO, they have those strategic visionaries on staff that are really focused on how to improve the profitability of the organization and help drive the business forward. But the organization, they're lacking the doers, those level 1s, those level 2s that can do a lot of the tactical work that has to get done to support the employees, handle their issues in a timely manner, or even take care of all of that day-to-day network management stuff that has to get done around patch management, backup management, those kinds of tactical tasks. Or you can end up engaging with a prospect where they have more of a tactical focused internal IT department. This kind is typically staffed with generalists that are mostly focused on providing kind of frontline support to the employees. So they have the level 1s, maybe a couple level 2s on staff who are capable of handling kind of that tactical day-to-day work, but they're missing those key strategic roles and specialized knowledge that a CTO or a CISO can provide to develop those longer term infrastructure and cybersecurity strategies for the organization. And, those techs who can perform the more advanced IT work that's needed to kind of keep the network safe, functional, and productive. And then you might also come across those 1-person IT departments. Those are our dear lone rangers, those individuals that have all the responsibility, but again, they are typically generalists in terms of their skill sets, and they operate alone, and they really don't have anyone else to help them get everything done that needs to get done in a day. All right, so next you kind of wanted, use this ICP that you've just defined and use it to start building out your prospect list of company names that you want to target, from a marketing and telesales perspective. And so I've just listed out here several resources that you can use to kind of help with this step. Obviously, go after that low-hanging fruit, look into your CRM, see if you have any existing clients that kind of fit the mold. Obviously, your online job sites like Indeed, Glassdoor, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, see what companies are looking to hire additional techs, additional security or network engineers, and go and reach out to them about the co-managed approach, because they don't necessarily need to hire one individual. They could look at getting a pool of resources from an MSP that can kind of probably deliver a lot more value for the same price. Obviously, LinkedIn, you can use the free version, will still get you lots of prospects, or I forget what it is. I think it's like $800 a year for the Sales Navigator, where you can get a lot more filters to create more custom lists based on whatever your search criteria is. Google as well can help you, build your list of companies in your area that meet your base criteria. Being involved in your Chamber of Commerce, kind of seeing what lists they have there. They're really good at also when new businesses are about to open, because generally businesses today have someone, whether it is an internal person or an MSP, supporting their network today. So the Chamber will let you know if there's any new businesses that are about to open that you might be able to go speak to. Obviously, referrals, asking your existing customers if they have any acquaintances or if they know anyone that they can refer to you who might be interested in kind of the co-managed approach to IT support. And then, your networking events, right? Attending trade shows, for maybe any industries or verticals that you're going to be supporting strategically, but basically putting yourself where your target customers are. And so what you're seeing here is just a screenshot from that go-to-market planning guide. Again, it's there for you to download in the handout section, but it's also included in the playbook as well as a link. All right, so now step 2, now that we know who we're targeting, we also need to find out about our competition and see who else is offering co-managed services in our area, because you want to make sure there's enough demand and not too much competition in your area, which I truly believe there shouldn't be at the moment, because I think this is still very much a greenfield for your MSP, but it's something we should do. But you are going to want to conduct your due diligence so that you're aware as to who you may be up against as you start marketing and selling your new services. So to guide your research, some questions you want to ask yourself. What other MSPs in the area are also offering co-managed services? What type of co-managed services are they promoting? How do their offerings compare to your offerings? Are they offering something that you're not? Are you offering a program that maybe they're not? Because this is a way that you're going to be able to differentiate yourself. What vertical markets, what role types, what geographic regions are your competitors targeting for their co-managed services? And then looking at how well is your competition doing at promoting their co-managed services? What kind of marketing and promotion activities are you seeing from them? And so to do this, you may want to look at your competitors' websites, look at their LinkedIn pages to see if there is any talk about co-managed services anywhere. And my feeling is that this still is a relatively new service offering. So a lot of MSPs, they're not marketing or selling to mid and upper enterprise companies just yet. And so they're not promoting the co-managed model. So I think there's still, the ability for you to get in on the ground floor here. Or if they are, they're not doing a great job of promoting these services out in the digital world. And that is really what I did find to be the case. I've been to Exchange. I did, I think, 4 or 5 boardroom sessions there earlier this year on co-managed. And it was interesting that about, I would say, probably 30, 35, 40% out of, I think, the 4 or 5 boardrooms I did, the MSPs were delivering co-managed. But in talking to them in the bar afterwards, they told me that they're not doing a great job of when it comes to the marketing and promotion of it. Because I made a comment in my presentation about, yeah, like if they are doing co-managed, I go and look at their websites. I go and look at their LinkedIn, and there is nary a mention of the co-managed model there. And we all know that, especially with this new buyer's journey, it has been reshaped because of the digital world we now live in. And so if a prospect, if they're interested, if they recognize that they need this supplemental support, they're going to take it to Google. And if they can't find information about you or your services online, it's almost like you're not delivering them. So I think this could be the case for your competitors. So even if you know your competitors offer co-managed services, if they're not marketing it or if they're not promoting it online, this is where you have a wonderful opportunity to kind of leapfrog them just by taking the time to put together a good co-managed campaign. And then you can use this to really get, build awareness, create demand, and differentiate your MSP to help your MSP stand out from them. So again, just another screenshot from the planning guide that kind of talks about the research step here. And now I'm going to combine 3 and 4 together because in order to decide what your key messaging is going to be that you're going to use in the different marketing and sales pieces, you first need to identify, what are all those potential problems and what are those pain points, those purchasing triggers that your audience is experiencing, because we want to make sure that our material speaks directly to those pain points and purchasing triggers. So how do we go about creating our key messaging for our co-managed campaigns? I look at it as an equation. It involves basically taking a pain point that's being experienced by your target customer, pairing that pain point with a key benefit that your co-managed services can provide, which will then deliver a positive outcome for the organization, putting the organization in a much better position than they were previously. Before engaging with your services. So again, I kind of look at this as an equation. It sometimes is referred to as what's called your value matrix. And this is going to be helpful to allow you to create the key messaging that you can use to communicate in your sales and marketing material. So in this next set of slides, I'm basically going to outline 10 potential pain points or 10 potential purchasing triggers that internal IT is experiencing. And then for each pain point discussed, we're going to pair it with a statement about the benefit and the value that your co-managed services can provide. And then we're going to use this to create a key sales message that you can use within your marketing material and your sales conversations. And so looking at pain point number 1, companies are experiencing staffing challenges and they're struggling to find the qualified technical staff they need to help them grow. And so the benefit that your co-managed services can provide for this is, enterprise companies can gain access to a pool of qualified IT support because your MSP can step in and backfill for any resource gap that they may have. And enterprise companies can then offload all of that stress that comes with the hiring and the management of these new technical employees to the MSP, so it becomes something they really don't have to concern themselves over. And so putting this together, our key marketing messaging that we can communicate, something around, are you struggling trying to hire qualified technical staff to join your team to help you grow? Offload that responsibility to us. We can provide you with access to an entire pool of technicians to fill any resource gap you may have. So that's kind of the format that I'm taking for the next set of pain points and purchasing triggers. So looking at number 2, because we're still facing a significant talent shortage on the tech side, in the IT space today, this is having a profound impact on the existing internal IT staff who are really forced to do more with less just to keep up with all of the organization's demands. And that's leading to burnout, exhaustion, and turnover because we now have a pool of overworked staff. And so looking at the benefit that your co-managed services can provide, again, this is where you can backfill this technical staffing shortage, you can offer services to help provide coverage for evenings or weekends, holiday support, just to give the internal team a little bit of breathing room and provide them a better work-life balance so that they don't burn out and quit and leave the organization in more of a bind than they currently are. And so looking at key marketing message here for this, if your IT team is feeling overwhelmed, overworked due to technical staffing shortages that they're experiencing, we can help prevent exhaustion. We can help prevent burnout by lightening the load for you. We can provide evening, weekends, holiday support that will bring about an improved work-life balance for your team members. Number 3, with changing technology trends, networks are becoming increasingly more and more complex, making it difficult to manage and keep up with it all. And so looking at the benefit of co-managed here, with their breadth and depth of experience working with a vast array of different companies and different IT environments, MSPs have no choice but to stay abreast of all the changing technology trends. They just don't have a choice. It's the nature of just the MSP model. And so as a result, they can offer a broader perspective and they can provide more valuable insights with respect to technology and IT environments and management best practices. And they can therefore offer assistance to internal IT departments on how their business can best utilize technology to more effectively meet, the organization's goals and objectives. And then looking at our key messaging here, technology trends, they're constantly evolving. Networks are becoming increasingly more and more complex to manage. Are you having difficulty keeping up with it all? Leverage our experience that comes from working with a vast array of different companies and different IT environments and allow us to offer a broader perspective on what is required to help your team utilize technology more effectively to meet your growth goals and objectives. Pain point number 4, with the increased sophistication of cyber attacks and the ever-changing threat landscape, the internal IT requires specialized cybersecurity expertise, but no one internally on the team has this expertise, nor do they have the budget to hire for it. And so looking at the benefit of co-managed services here, enterprise companies can gain access to qualified cybersecurity expertise that they need, because again, you can step in and manage and mitigate the cybersecurity risk for them at a fraction of the cost of having to go out and hiring the cybersecurity expertise themselves. And then looking at the key marketing and sales messaging, partner with us to gain access to an entire team that can provide the cybersecurity specialization you need to bolster your cybersecurity posture. We can supplement your in-house IT department's existing skill sets and give you the safety and security you're looking for at a fraction of the cost of building a team of cybersecurity experts yourself. Number 5. For smaller organizations that might have just one internal IT person on staff, a lot of times that person can feel isolated, they can feel alone, as they have no one that they can speak with who truly understands their role or the daily challenges that they have to contend with. And so oftentimes they're lacking the comfort of just having that other technical peer to consult with, when a technical issue arises. And so another big benefit of your services, by partnering with an MSP, you can provide ongoing access to their team of IT professionals for the internal IT admin to consult with. If the internal IT admin is dealing maybe with a tricky issue or a situation that they might need help dealing with. And so your MSP partnership can help make them feel connected and supportive, that they're not alone, without the organization needing to go through the expense of bringing on another IT resource. And sorry if you're hearing all the vacuuming in the background. I just have the cleaners here today, so hopefully it's not too much of a distraction. And so the key marketing message from for this point is, gain access and learn from other IT professionals, when presented with tricky IT situations. You don't have to go it alone. We're here to help support you and your team. Which leads to pain point number 6. As important as preventative maintenance is, especially when it comes to functions like patch management, to avoiding security breaches and network downtime, a lot of times these critical activities don't receive the attention they require because of all the other competing priorities that the company may have, or due to lack of staff. And so another big benefit that your services can provide, by partnering with an MSP, you can ensure that critical activities like preventative maintenance, patch management are given a priority for the organization, helping to strengthen its overall security posture and improving the performance and reliability of the network. And then our key messaging out of this, performing regular network maintenance, especially patch management, that's a vital component to your organization's overall security strategy. And it's necessary to keep your IT infrastructure performing reliably. We all know these aren't fun tasks, but they are critical. And so we're going to work with your team to make, maintenance activities and patch management a top priority to help keep your company safe from potential cyber threats and your network running as smoothly as possible. Which leads to number 7. The company has some important pro-growth projects that have to get done, but the internal IT team doesn't have the bandwidth to implement them in a timely manner because of the limited staff and other competing priorities. So in this instance, maybe the CEO wants to expand the business. Maybe they want to launch, some new product or some new service, but the internal IT, they just don't have the resources they need to implement, these growth initiatives as quickly as the CEO would like, because they're overburdened, they're struggling, trying just to keep up with all of their regular daily tasks that they have to get done. And so it can be challenging for them to kind of take on and complete these new projects that might be, given to them by the management team because of the finite number of technical personnel that they have on staff and the work that, they're currently also responsible for. And so another big benefit is, by partnering with an MSP, you can provide that additional support and the dedicated techs that are needed to help those companies implement those important pro-growth projects that are required so they can continue to scale and to scale quickly. You can help businesses meet their organizational goals and objectives by effectively helping them divide and conquer, when it comes to tech projects and tasks that are needed to, get their expansion activities in play, without the company having to go out and hire new internal IT staff just to get it all done. And so you can offer to take on some of these strategic projects on yourself on behalf of the internal IT team, or you can assist by taking over maybe some of the day-to-day network maintenance. And this would then free up the internal team to focus on the corporate projects that need to get done to help drive that business forward. And then looking at the key marketing messaging out of this, does your team suffer from too much work and too little time? Are there important strategic projects that need to get done, but you just can't because the day-to-day stuff gets in the way? We can help fuel your growth plans by dividing and conquering those critical projects so you can meet your strategic growth objectives more quickly. Which leads to number 8. Employees are experiencing high levels of unproductive downtime and dissatisfaction because of unstable and underperforming systems, because the internal team is finding it challenging to complete the regular network maintenance that's needed to keep the IT environment functioning reliably. So another big benefit, again, we all know that regular preventative maintenance can improve overall system performance. It's what's needed to help keep the company's computers running reliably. So here you can offer to take over this routine maintenance, from the internal IT team and allow them to refocus their efforts on other priority items that also have to get done. They can focus on their core competencies and the work that they actually want to do. And so this becomes kind of a win-win for everyone. The employees get a better performing network because the regular maintenance is getting done, and the internal IT team gets to work on things that they actually really enjoy doing and that they do find fun and exciting because they've offloaded the routine stuff to you and your MSP. And so then looking at the key marketing message, our purpose here is twofold: to help make you and your team look good and to help free up your time so your team can work on activities that they actually want to do. By offloading the routine maintenance to us, we can help keep your employees happy and productive by keeping their computer systems running reliably, while you get to spend time working on those more interesting projects that excite you. Pain point number 9, enterprise companies are not harnessing the power that the right technology, the right processes, and the right set of best practices can provide due to lack of knowledge, lack of time to investigate, evaluate, and lack of budget. And so another big benefit that your co-managed services can provide, as the MSP, your focus is continually on IT, your focus is continually on security. And so you're naturally more in tune to what is going on, from a technological and security landscape. To support your customers, you're the one who is, really the one that's in the know, right? About, what are the top tier tool sets that are used to manage and secure an organization's IT environment. You have already gone through developing the right policies, the procedures, the best practices, because you needed these to manage all of your customers' networks in the best and most efficient way possible. So this is the core focus of your business and what you've built your entire livelihood on. This is what you do. And so you naturally have more experience working in security and IT than the average internal IT team does, because they tend to be more, predominantly focused on just their own network. So by leveraging your knowledge, you can help internal IT departments implement those best-in-class tool sets, processes that are needed when it comes to monitoring and management and security management and patch management, endpoint protection, that sort of thing. And because of how busy internal IT teams already tend to be, they likely don't have the time to research, vet, implement, and then stay on top of all of the training that has to get done when it comes to network management and the security software solutions that are needed today to keep the employees protected, or to develop their own set of policies and best practices for the team to follow. And a lot of organizations just don't have the budget or the time to bring in true expertise like this, especially when it comes to cybersecurity and the enterprise-grade tool sets and systems that are needed for proper risk mitigation and protection coverage. So this is where, by partnering with an MSP, the organization can then leverage the MSP's industry knowledge, best of breed tool sets, their expertise, without needing to go and make these investments of time and money themselves. Which leads to the key marketing message. We can help support your team. We can help drive more efficiency and heighten your security in your business through implementation and management of the right tool sets, the right processes, the best set of best practices, without you having to make these kind of investments yourselves. And then lastly, number 10, and this, again, we talked about, could be present within your existing customer base today, or it could be just another customer type to target. But basically, for those growing organizations who, you may already be working with, or maybe they're working with another MSP, they may be starting to feel that they're not getting the responsiveness or the attention that they require. And they're now contemplating going out and hiring and bringing in their own internal IT resource so they can get that responsiveness that they're looking for. And so a benefit that your services can provide is, the enterprise company can work with your MSP to determine, what their true IT requirements and resources are, and establish a mutually beneficial arrangement to meet those needs. Maybe it means that you help them hire an internal, maybe a tier 1 or a level 1 help desk person to address their responsiveness concerns. And then this can allow your MSP to move into that role of trusted advisor where you can provide the consulting when it comes to strategy and the roadmap. And so instead of losing this client because they felt that they could just replace you with a single IT person, you can be proactive and you can work to retain that customer and actually elevate the status of your partnership with them. And so a key marketing message that you can use around this is, feeling that you've outgrown your MSP. Let's talk about how we can work together to give your business the responsiveness it needs, along with the strategic technical oversight it requires. So we've covered 1, 2, 4, so let's look at 5 through 7 now in the second half. So step 5 is all about deciding, what marketing channels are going to be the most appropriate to use to help build awareness and promote our new co-managed services offerings. Now that we already know who we're targeting and what our messaging is going to be, and we've recognized that there's not a whole lot of our competitors out there talking about this. So marketing channels, they are the different types of content that you're going to use to create this demand for your services to move potential customers down the marketing and sales funnel until they become a new signed contract in the end. So when we talk about marketing channels, we're talking about, social media. We're talking about paid search ads. We're talking about email campaigns. We're talking about, SEO optimized content. And so this is content that's created that's going to help you rank on ideally the first page of search engines like Google. So it involves creating content that contains, the right set of keywords, the right phrases that can help potential customers easily find your website to get answers to their questions or problems that they're trying to solve. Again, going back to when do they have that purchasing trigger? And so it's used to help drive traffic to your website. And great pieces of SEO optimized content that can really be instrumental in driving traffic to your website. When we talk about writing blog posts, articles, white papers, ebooks, creating guides, posting videos, the idea is to ensure that, what you create does hit a certain purchasing trigger, that's prompting your prospect to start researching solutions in the first place. Again, going back to one of those 10 pain points that we just discussed, where it's either the CEO or maybe the IT director, they're recognizing that they have a problem and now they're looking for options on how to solve, whatever their staffing and resource issues are that they've identified. And so we can help with a lot of this initial promotion and awareness building because we do have some great useful material that we've included into Market Builder, and we're continuing to develop new materials for Market Builder, especially around the co-managed IT services model. So there already is an existing co-managed IT services campaign in Market Builder that you can use. There's general, kind of co-managed material where we have sample emails and social posts and PowerPoint presentations and sell sheets that you can use. And then we've also been expanding it with a lot of the program specific pieces as well. But one piece within the general campaign that I love to highlight, and we actually have this for every campaign in Market Builder, touches on what I said just a moment ago about SEO content marketing and how important it is when creating content. For it to be beneficial in driving traffic to your website, you want to make sure that you are incorporating the right keywords into your content that you're creating. And these keywords must closely align, to the types of maybe inquiries or questions or search criteria that your top prospects are searching for, when they take it to Google. And so when you're working on your website, because hopefully that is part of your marketing plan, is to make sure that your website gets updated and it includes a section of your new co-managed services. Take a look at the key messages and keywords section of the Market Builder co-managed campaign and see how you can incorporate these words or phrases into your material. So again, when CEOs and IT directors are searching for supplemental support, your website pops up on page 1. And so they have listed there some common keywords, phrases that you might want to consider including in your copy. Obviously, co-managed IT, I have a love-hate relationship with this term because I feel that this is still an industry term. We understand it because we're in the industry, but I don't necessarily know if the average IT director or the average CEO is familiar with that phrase. So I tend to like supplemental IT support, supplemental IT management, even help for internal IT teams, help for internal IT departments, help for in-house IT departments. So a couple of ideas there for that. And again, if you haven't had a chance to check out Market Builder yet, or maybe you haven't been in there for a while, I always want just to, include a registration code or the QR code so that you can easily access it and register for it, or log back in if you haven't been in for a while. Okay, so a comment came in, but the issue with built material, it will not work with search due to duplication of wording. Yeah, I see what you're saying there, Michael. Again, the idea is just to kind of give you this as kind of a jumping off point for it. I'm always, and I'm not sure if this is where you're going with your comment there, but I like our Market Builder material, but if I was an MSP, I would just kind of take the verbiage and probably not the actual format that we give it to you in. Outsourced IT. Yeah, and I guess this maybe just goes with my comment for all of our material here. If you are a one-man shop and you're not doing any marketing today, then I would like you to do something, and Market Builder will help you with that something. If you can devote a little bit more time or have some resource that you can dedicate it to it, I would rather you kind of plagiarize our material, but put it with your own look and feel, so that as your prospects are looking through your social feed or going to your website, they're not seeing kind of a copycat from your MSP to somebody else's. Like, again, not to knock our Market Builder, but I can easily tell as I go through my LinkedIn feed, oh, who's using Market Builder, because it's the same set of pictures and formatting. But again, I'd rather partners do something than nothing. So Market Builder is that something, but if you have that time, kind of take the messaging and massage it and use it as a jumping off point to create more material around. So, but anyways, I digress. So the different marketing channels that you decide to use is really going to depend on your target audience and where your potential customers are in their buying journey. So as an example, to help you build awareness in the marketplace, like we're trying to do with co-managed, search engine optimized content, that can direct top of funnel customers, to your website, who have never heard of your MSP or your services before. So you might write some blogs, maybe about the, top 5 benefits of co-managed IT services and how they can help solve, the top 3 challenges facing internal IT departments today. And the playbook, I have just outlined 10 that you can choose from. And because the goal of these blog posts is that hopefully internal IT leadership or C-suite leadership may start, searching supplemental IT support on Google, come across your blog article, read it, and then they'll just go and they'll check out the rest of your website to see, what your MSP is all about. And then hopefully they'll reach out and call you, or maybe they'll go into your website and fill out a form asking to book a meeting with you. Or if you're speaking to potential prospects and they have some doubts or questions or concerns about the co-managed model, because again, there's a lot of myths, I think, out there, you may want to write and post some case studies or video testimonials to your website, or add it to LinkedIn to dispel, some of those common myths around co-managed IT services, and showcase, what a partnership with your MSP can be like, and it can be fruitful and beneficial to internal organizations, because you can help them, really accomplish more without having to hire additional staff. Or you might offer to host a webinar or an in-person event to help educate prospects on what co-managed IT services are. You know, bring them into your office if you have a nice boardroom or very lovely premises, or host them at a restaurant. You know, provide refreshments, feed them a meal, and use that time to really network and chat. You know, those prospects that you've identified could benefit from the co-managed model. You know, basically what we call, you know, lunch and learns. And it's actually where I think lunch and learns would serve as a fantastic starting point that MSPs can use to really help jumpstart their new co-managed IT services approach and this new line of business for their MSP. And because there's a lot of good benefits with lunch and learns. You know, I think the big one is it's going to help transform your MSP into that authority figure on the subject of co-managed IT services, again, especially if your competitors aren't doing anything like this. And hosting an event like a lunch and learn is what's going to help set your MSP apart from everyone else in your space. And I think this is a tactic that I don't think or I haven't heard about a lot of MSPs using as part of their marketing and sales arsenal. In doing my research and in developing, you know, this whole series of boot camps on co-managed services, I felt strongly that from a go-to-market standpoint, lunch and learns had to play an integral part in the overall marketing strategy, because this is a tactic that worked very well for Enable when we were just starting out in the RMM and managed services space 20 years ago. You know, back in the day, and 20 years later it still is, our sales and marketing strategy has always been really around education, teaching, building awareness, helping MSPs communicate the value of managed services to their customers. And part of how we did this is we would send salespeople out into the world and we would co-host events with our partners to talk about the benefits of managed services versus back then kind of that current unpredictable support model of time material. And it was in a lot of these events, these lunch and learns or breakfast and learns, where MSPs were able to sign on their customers. And so these types of events did a lot in the beginning of growing the adoption of managed services for our partners, especially in the early years. And so I think this is something that could work really well in this situation, because the concept of co-managed, it's still so new. And given the financial and economic landscape that's facing businesses currently, offering a different perspective and different options and how they can get help, you know, for their mid or upper enterprise company today to help them deal with these economic uncertainties and these talent shortages, I think it's a really good message to be putting out there. And again, you know, with all the MSPs that I'm connected with and all of the websites that I look at, I know there's a lot of MSPs that are not doing this, even though they tell me they do deliver co-managed services. Because I really feel that there is nothing like, especially now that we're kind of post-pandemic, having gone through a couple of years of lockdown, there's nothing like having that face-to-face interaction to really help jumpstart a relationship, especially with a prospect that you've kind of selected, handpicked to invite to your event and who actually attends. And, you know, there are several different elements that make for a good lunch and learn. It's something where, you know, I hope you're not panicking as I'm talking about this. I don't really want you overthinking this. I think part of the reason why MSPs aren't leveraging this, what I believe is a great sales tactic to help drive leads and cultivate prospects, is they think something like a lunch and learn is just going to be too much work to pull off, or it's going to be too expensive. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. But there are a few good key components that you have to have in place. And the first is a great list. You know, we talked about this back in step one, you know, developing your ideal client profile, developing your target audience, building a list of top prospects that you want to market to that possess the key characteristics that you desired, you know, in a quality type of client that you prefer to do business with. Has to have educational content. You know, your event's top priority is to educate, not sell, and provide relevant insights that can help address those key challenges, those struggles, those purchasing triggers facing your target audience. And you should be able to offer solutions that can help them overcome these pains. So this is basically all that work that we did back in steps 3 and 4 of our go-to-market planning process. You know, if you can demonstrate that your MSP understands the challenges that are facing internal IT departments today, and you actually have options to help alleviate these challenges, this is something your attendees will be interested in. And then planting a few friendlies in the audience where they can provide testimonials and insights to your guests is going to help. You know, you can either have them take part in your presentation, or maybe they participate in a panel discussion where you're talking about how partnering with your MSP has really helped to make their internal IT department more productive and run more efficiently. Because the truth of the matter is, you know, peers are always going to be more receptive to listening to their peers. They are always going to feel that their peers are going to be more credible than you, because they do ultimately, you know, understand that you are trying to sell them something. So don't underestimate the value. Including a few friendly customers in the audience or on stage can bring to an event like this. And also don't underestimate what a good venue with good food can do as well at fostering connections and building relationships with prospects. You know, this is all about making a wonderful first impression and promoting a nice venue that's known for a great atmosphere, food selection. That's also going to help improve your attendance rate. You know, people have to eat at the end of the day, and if you're inviting them to a well-known location, they likely will show up. And you also need to have a polished process around all of those event logistics and the RSVP management, you know, meaning you have to have a proper registration process with professional reminders in place, you know, leveraging email, leveraging follow-up phone calls to really help set the expectation that this is a serious and professional event that you're hosting. And you do want to be strict in terms of who does RSVP to your event, and not be afraid to uninvite those who may have registered, but they don't fit your target client profile. You know, you don't want those people that are just there looking for the free meal, right? So you want to make sure that your marketing and sales material, that you're clear with whom this event is intended for, because this will just ensure that you have who you want in the audience, and the people that you actually want are in the audience. And then lastly, you know, having a positive mental attitude around all of this. You know, if you've never hosted a customer event before, it's not going to go perfect the first time around. So don't let that stop you from planning a follow-up event. You know, repetition is what's going to be key to generating success and really doing anything. So this is where we just have to recognize what went well, what could do, you know, go better, and then adjust our processes and our tactics for the next time. And to help with this endeavor, I have developed what I'm calling the co-managed services event in a box. And I basically tried to think of everything that your MSP would need to help plan, promote, and deliver a prospect event where you're using it to introduce and help educate prospects on the value of co-managed services. And so in the co-managed event in a box campaign, there are a number of numerous pieces of customizable content where you can use it to help promote and invite your targeted prospects to your event. So this is all within the co-managed playbook. These are just Word documents. Again, going back to my point where I don't want to see the same pictures in my feed, but usually it's the messaging, it's the verbiage that people struggle with. So these are just Word documents that you can use as a jumping off point if this is something that you think might help kind of land your first set of co-managed clients. So in the co-managed in the box, I've written 4 emails, so you can send out 1 email a week over a 4-week period, encouraging prospects to register for your event. I've written 6 social media posts that you can use for LinkedIn or for your Facebook feeds, again, encouraging prospects to register for your event. Sample text for a direct mail postcard, because maybe you want to be very deliberate in terms of who you actually invite. So you can either go the old school method with direct mail, putting a nice postcard together, or maybe this is something you include in a newsletter, because I still think snail mail is a powerful promotion mechanism. You know, businesses these days, you know, they're just inundated with so much electronic mail. So you can use this to help make yourself stand out, because not too many people get a whole lot of regular mail these days. So having a nice sturdy postcard, inviting them to your event, or a flyer or a newsletter, I think could capture some good attention. A landing page, so when prospects act on the email they receive, the postcard you sent them, or they're interested in a social post you've written for LinkedIn, you know, your call to action in those pieces is to direct them to your website. And so having a landing page where they can register themselves for your event. I've also gone and created some phone scripts for your sales team to use to complement all of the marketing effort, because marketing alone can only do so much to fill in your venue. For optimum success, you are going to want to pair that marketing with a proactive outbound call campaign to personally invite organizations and businesses to your event. I've also included an updated co-managed sell sheet that you can use as, I really look at this as a secondary marketing piece that you can send out to anyone that may have questions around what co-managed services are. I've also gone and redesigned the actual PowerPoint presentation that you can customize to deliver during the event, if you feel that you might need one. And then I have some supplemental supporting pieces that I've created. I've included an event planning guide, as well as an event planning checklist to help with the overall planning process. And also I've included an evaluation form that you can distribute, you know, at the close of the event, you know, because it is going to be important to get some feedback from your guests on what they thought went well, or what improvements they would like to see for next time, so that you can improve on this for next time, because as I keep saying, there has to be a next time. So again, I try to think of everything that you would need to help plan and get a customer event off the ground. So you can use this as a way to kind of kickstart this whole new line of business for you, and hopefully get a few quick wins. And so again, all of this material you can find within the co-managed digital playbook. And then I have sent it off to Tracy, who runs our market builder platform, to see if she can kind of market builderize it as well. So right now it is just purely Word documents that you have access to, which I think is the better approach. And if there's anything there that you feel needs to be added that maybe I've overlooked, send me a message, because I just want to make this an even more powerful toolkit for you to use from a promotion standpoint. And then step 6 is all about creating your sales plan, because obviously the ultimate goal is to sell co-managed services contracts. So it's essential to decide, you know, how are you going to sell into your target audience, and then turn your target audience of prospects into actual buyers. And that's where our sales strategy comes into play. And so this is where I think launching your co-managed services with an in-person event is going to work the best and be the easiest, because it will give your appointment setting team, your SDR team, you know, sales development resources, representatives, a team and a purpose and something to focus on, you know, as their outbound calling activities, you know, for that particular campaign can be centered around, you know, just generating interest in your co-managed event and populating the event. You know, it gives your appointment setting team, your SDR team, you know, something tangible and, you know, I'll say fun to promote. And so that's why I have included some sample call scripts in the Event in the Box campaign to help with this activity. And so one sample sales plan you can put in place can be centered around, you know, how do you go about populating this event? And so the idea here is that, you know, you as the business owner, sales leadership, sales team, SDRs, you all work together to help create your prospect list of companies and contact names of who you want to invite to this event. So again, going back to step 1, where we talked about, you know, building our ICP and identifying our target audience. Then the SDRs, they go and work the phones to invite those prospective customers to your event. Or, If you don't have an SDR team, then it's, you know, one of your salespeople that ideally would take on this activity. And then the week leading up to the event, they're then tasked with calling everyone who is registered to remind them of the event. You know, maybe answer any questions that they may have, make sure they know where the event is, that they know that there's parking, to make sure that they're still planning on attending. And then at the actual event themselves, your sales team should be making a point to going and introducing themselves to everyone that's in attendance, you know, kind of do that networking thing, right? Because the goal there after the event is to see if they can book an appointment with them, no longer than maybe a week post-event. And then at that meeting, the sales rep, does their regular discovery process, their due diligence to see if there's a good fit between their organization and your MSP. And then if there is a good fit, you as the business owner would then draft and present the proposal at the closing meeting, alongside the sales rep. And then obviously you go and determine what your onboarding implementation plan looks like from there. So it's not a very complicated sales plan. It's actually a very basic and straightforward sales plan, for when it comes to doing something like a lunch and learn. I think the hardest part will be just kind of creating your lists and then getting people to attend. But this is where I feel strongly that, everyone needs to eat. They appreciate a good meal at a nice location. And so that's why I think either bringing them into your office, if you have a really nice one with a nice boardroom, and bringing in, having it catered nicely, and providing refreshments, or inviting them to a nice local restaurant really works well. And the venue you decide on really depends on how large of a crowd you want to address. If this is your first time, are you really looking to speak in front of 50 or 100 people? Or maybe what works best is creating kind of that more intimate gathering. Maybe the goal is just to get 12 to 15 people in a room, and then use that to hopefully create some meaningful connections. But if you don't want to host a prospect event, in the digital playbook, I've also included some general scripts, like sample general scripting that your SDR could use when calling prospects. And the goal here is not to invite them to an event, but it's just to book an appointment, whether it's with the account executive or whether it's with you as the business owner. But regardless of whether you do an event or not, it will be important that you have someone dedicated to calling into your dream list of prospects to book appointments for you or for the account executive to help kind of get the co-managed business off the ground. And so there are a few different perspectives as I was talking to colleagues and different MSPs about whom your SDRs should be calling first when they're trying to make that initial connection. My feeling is, and I will love it if anybody has differing opinion on this, is maybe have your SDR focused on connecting with the internal IT director or IT administrator first to socialize the idea of establishing a potential co-managed partnership. And then from there, if there's interest, that initial qualification meeting, when it gets scheduled, that's when you would request to have the CEO there as well, or the CFO and the internal IT department, having both sides participate in that initial meeting. So in the digital playbook, I have included, again, some sample scripting. I've broken it down into opening questions that your SDR could use to help jumpstart the co-managed conversation, kind of some follow-up questions, and then how do you close it, where you're basically asking for the appointment. So if having difficulty reading what's on the slide, don't worry, this is all part of the playbook as well. And you'll see that these opening questions really do center around those 10 to 12 pain points that we spoke about in steps 3 and 4. So a potential opening line could be something like, Mr. IT Administrator, with the state of the economy currently, we're finding that a lot of mid and upper enterprise IT organizations, they're getting stretched, too much work for the team to do, too little time to get it all done. How is your team managing all of this? Are you finding that you and your team are stretched for time or having difficulties, implementing certain projects because of lack of IT staff? Or maybe, part of your strategy is to scour all of those online job boards, LinkedIn, and maybe you've created a list of companies who are looking to hire additional technical staff. Again, those are great opportunities to call into those companies and offer an alternative for their consideration. So another opening line option could be something like, I see from LinkedIn that ABC company is looking to hire a new system administrator. How is that search going for you? Have you ever considered leveraging the services of an MSP in lieu of hiring, a single internal technical resource that you would then have to manage? You could offload the hiring and the management responsibility over to us. And then some options for some follow-up questions to kind of use after you got, hopefully, that initial conversation going to kind of help guide the prospect so that you can ultimately get them to agree to a sit-down meeting with you and discuss this further. So questions like trying to find out, how many people are in the IT department, what's the org structure like, how is the IT department managed? Because you want to find out, what that structure of the internal IT department is. Are they a top-heavy IT department? Are they bottom-heavy? Is there just a single person there? Or is there like maybe a CIO, but they doesn't have anybody else really working for them? Again, trying to figure out what is the structure of that internal IT department. And then, trying to find out, how is the IT department handling the current workload? IT professionals are in demand. They're good ones are hard to find. Are you struggling with finding the right IT specialist for your department? Because here you want to try and figure out, what does the breadth and depth of the current workload look like, so that you can determine, what level of services that you might be able to assist with. Because this is where you can also talk about how your team has enabled, other clients to spend less time searching for IT specialists and work with you, which allows them more time to growing their business. And then, or asking, what's working well within the department, what's not working well, what pro-growth IT projects do you want to tackle that you just don't have time to start at the moment? Do you feel that your current IT team is well equipped to undertake, the go forward projects that are needed to help your organization become more competitive? If you've been able to figure out that there are some projects they're looking to undertake, but they just don't have time, or companies are having to find ways to stretch budgets, especially IT budgets. Is your current IT budget being impacted by, this possible recession or any financial uncertainties that we keep hearing about? And then, another set of follow-up questions, organizations are increasingly becoming more reliant on technology that runs their business. What would you do if your IT department didn't have the resources to handle an emergency downtime incident? And again, so here with these sets of questions, it's just to give you an idea of any challenges that they might be experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and help highlight, maybe any obstructions that they have in their workflow, and see where your services might be able to kind of step in and align and assist them with that. And then if it seems that you are gaining a consensus and that there appears to be a fit between what you can offer and what the IT administrator is looking for, this is where we can start, kind of dialing it in and summing up the conversation, really kind of getting to what our call to action is, right? We want to book that appointment. So, if you don't have the staff to handle the next big project, or the team is overwhelmed, that they're struggling to keep up with the daily tasks needed to keep your company's network, safe, secure, and protected, would having a partnership where we could grant you access to our staff for assistance rather than going out and hiring and finding help be an advantage to you? Or another way we can phrase this is, if I can offer a way to help you manage all of this, is that something you'd be interested in hearing more about? Would you be open to hearing, setting up a meeting to explore kind of a new potential partnership further? All right, so again, just some highlights of the sample scripting for today, but again, more scripting is available, ideas around it in the playbook. So here I wanted to add a section just to kind of prepare for some of the most common objections your SDRs might hear when they first start to engage with maybe an IT director on the other line. You know, whether you're trying to invite them to an event, or maybe they're just calling to speak about your co-managed services in more general. And again, a lot of this is included in the co-managed digital playbook, but I just want to kind of highlight kind of the top ones in today's PowerPoint or today's boot camp. So the big sales objections that your sales team is likely going to hear, where you're going to want to have prepared responses for and practice these prepared responses. I have them listed here. You know, we want to keep our IT department and our employees. You know, isn't co-managed just a way for you to get your foot in the door and take over our IT department? Are you trying to take over my job and get me fired? Are you trying to get someone else fired? I just need extra hands for grunt work, you know, when needed. So these are really what I call like the myths that may be out there in the market that you may hear about when you start talking about co-managed services, because this is all coming across as very threatening if the internal IT department or the IT person that you're speaking with is not very familiar with the whole IT co-managed model. So let's break each of these down with some common responses. So the first one, you know, we want to keep our IT department and our employees. And your SDR would dispel this myth by simply saying, you know, we want you to keep your IT department and your employees too. You know, that's one of the biggest benefits of the co-managed strategy. You know, you keep your staff and we complement and support your team wherever it makes the most sense for you. So very easy, very straightforward if they get that sort of concern. Another big objection you might hear is, you know, isn't co-managed just a way for you to get the foot in the door and take over IT department? This may be your approach in your mind. Please, if you are seriously thinking about co-managed, you can't go into this model with that end approach. Naturally, over time, it may happen, but in the beginning, your goal is to really say, no, not at all. Our IT specialists know how to work with and under the direction of your internal staff and leadership. You know, our objective is to do the behind the scenes work that helps your IT specialists be successful in their efforts. You know, I can't speak for how other companies do co-managed, but for our number one objective is to support your team wherever you may need us. Now, what happens 2, 3, 4 years down the line? Who knows? You may ultimately end up taking over that entire IT department, but that is definitely not the primary objective going in with this model. Another possible comment your SDR team may hear, you know, are you trying to take over my job? Or, you know, are you trying to get me or someone else fired? And I think that's, you know, probably one of the biggest objections you may hear, and it's probably one of the biggest roadblocks to the co-managed services model. It's going to be that IT manager. They are the ones that are going to probably feel the most threatened and think their job is on the line, because they may feel that you're trying to expose their incompetence or maybe some of their lax technical practices. So in your sales conversations, you want to reinforce the message that you are there to help. You're there to support them in whatever that predefined, and that's a big term, predefined scope of work is, and that's it. You know, you may have to be blunt and reinforce that you are not there to take over their job. You're not there to take over anyone's job for that matter. You know, that will never be the intention of your co-managed businesses model. You know, your main priority is to help make their internal IT team more productive and more successful in the eyes of the employees and the CEO and the senior leadership team, because there really is no co-managed without that internal IT department to work with. And I think another way you might be able to handle this type of comment is, you know, continue to reinforce that this isn't your motivation or your plan behind your services. You know, reinforce that your team is a team of specialists and you're offering a specialized approach to support wherever the internal IT team may need it. So you're not a threat to anyone's job, because your team, Mr. IT Administrator, we focus just on X and only X. Your intent is to really meant to help complement and backfill any resources or skills gaps that the organization has identified in terms of security, help desk support, network management, and you can offer this service really at a fraction of the cost of them having to hire additional staff to fill this knowledge or resource gap themselves. So again, it's that reinforcement that your main priority is to help make the internal team more productive, efficient, and successful. Another comment your SDR may hear is, we only need a little bit of help, kind of here and there. And so a potential answer could be, perfect, we can fill in whatever gaps you may have. Let's set up a meeting and talk about how we can customize a co-managed program that fits just what you're looking for based on the help that your team needs. But just a little bit of a cautionary note here with this comment, because your goal is to get, kind of a signed recurring revenue contract from your customer. It's not going to help you to take on another time material client. So although the idea of the co-managed model is to work in a collaborative manner with the internal IT team to provide that supplemental support as needed, you have the right to determine what constitutes this supplemental support. So don't, again, feel the need to pick up any and all business that you can get, especially if it's not a good fit for your team or for your services. And I bring this up because in a conversation I had with a partner, he was telling me he was working with a prospect for hopefully what he thought was a potential co-managed contract. And the IT director that he was speaking with basically just wanted to be able to call them in an ad hoc fashion whenever he might happen to need them, like when he's out sick or when one of his guys is out on vacation or, when they're out sick. And so he was really looking for someone to just kind of step in and take over in one of these circumstances. And, he wanted this partner for when, they might need extra hands to help, maybe knock off stuff off of his to-do list. And, on the surface, you may think that this could be a potential contract to win, but, in kind of discussing this a little bit further, this IT director, he didn't want to sign any sort of monthly fee, any sort of contract to keep this partner on retainer. And the extra hands work that he was requesting, it was really around when inventory came in and they needed help unboxing computers and equipment. And so basically this IT director wanted them on call at a moment's notice to do the grunt work. Really something that you would pay like interns for, right? And the challenge here is that without some sort of regular MRR engagement or a piece of the pie from an infrastructure management standpoint, it would be very difficult to just kind of step in, if you're given basically no notice. And in the case of the grunt work request, he was feeling, and I agree with him, that this was really forming an unhealthy and an unbalanced relationship where the IT director was basically looking down on the partner and his whole team. It's really conveying the message that the IT director's team will handle all the important work while the MSP team is going to handle all the unimportant work. So this, again, the comment may be we only need a little help here and there. That can work in both ways. And so you definitely want to explore what do they mean by a little help here or there, and make sure that what you decide to go with, that there is some sort of monthly recurring revenue that stems from this, because that is the ultimate goal. And then I've put this slide in a couple of different boot camps, most notably in my sales process boot camps, but I think it might be helpful to include it here as well. Do what you can to capture your prospects' direct quotes, as you or anyone from your sales team is speaking with them, about any of the challenges, the struggles, the pain points that they're looking to achieve, whatever their purchasing trigger is that really prompted them to engage with you. Anytime they tell you something important about what matters to them, this is where we want to write it down and get it into our CRM. And this is going to be highly beneficial for when hopefully you get to the proposal and presentation stage of the sales process, if you're able to make it to that point. Because if you're able to present them with your proposal and they're able to kind of see their own direct quotes kind of captured throughout it, they'll know that you understand and fully grasp, their situation and what they're looking for from you. So you do want to be able to capture, their expressed needs in their own words, restate those words back to them, in your proposal document. And this is going to help, keep your proposal synced. It will keep it very focused on the prospect's goals, objectives, their primary concerns. And you can also use their own words to help counter any sales objections you might receive. If they give you any pushback, as you're talking about your proposal, you'll be able to go back and kind of remind them about what they said in a previous conversation, and then say, you mentioned this is the benefit and the outcome that you can receive from our services, to kind of counter that. And then as you move through the sales cycle with a prospect, some other concerns or pushback that you might hear from IT leadership, maybe we should just consider hiring someone new. This sounds like it could be expensive. I think we could just figure out a way to continue handling this ourselves. If you hear these types of objections being communicated to you by either the CEO, the CFO, or the internal IT administrator in a sales meeting, or maybe, within the proposal presentation time, it's going to be handy to kind of review kind of the ROI benefits of working with an MSP versus either just throwing an extra body at the issues to address the resource challenge that they're experiencing, or maybe just kind of continuing, in the as is, kind of maintaining the status quo and then continuing to struggle and just make do. So maybe after some discussion, you're talking with the CEO, the IT leadership, and they kind of say to you, you know what, maybe we should just consider hiring someone new, or this does sound like it could be too expensive. You could respond with, actually, a co-managed relationship can provide your company with the tailored support and economical access to an entire team of IT professionals for much less than it would cost you to recruit, train, and retain the additional in-house staff that you're looking for. And you can accomplish this by demonstrating, almost the instant cost savings that you can provide them by not going out and hiring someone new for your organization. And we're not just talking about the direct cost savings, but all of those soft costs that you could be saving them as well. In a co-managed relationship, your MSP can very quickly and easily help plug any knowledge or skill gaps that may exist within the internal IT team, because your MSP, you're already going to have a turnkey team of IT specialists on staff that the internal IT department would be granted access to, ranging from those who can provide help desk services, troubleshooting support, all the way up to, providing them highly specialized security and networking experts in the field, again, whatever it is that internal IT team may require. So in this scenario, the organization, they can avoid spending the time, the money, recruiting and hiring additional skilled staff that require, or having to go out and invest in expensive training or certification courses that the internal team may need just to keep current on, the technology and security trends and best practices that are needed today. And with the co-managed arrangement, whenever the business needs from its IT to achieve its goals, the customer would have access to it through the partnership with your MSP, from the people to the software tool sets, to the training best practices, the policies and procedures. So with an arrangement like this, why would a CEO go out and waste their own cycles recruiting and managing new staff members? Internal resources, they get sick, they take holidays, they sometimes go and quit on you. So instead of the organization spending all of this time, money, and effort to hire and train more internal resources, the organization, they could partner with you and get an entire team of skilled resources who they don't have to worry about getting sick or needing time off or leaving for greener pastures. that becomes your problem for much less money than it would cost to hire a single resource. So this capability really means that the company can do more with less and receive tailored support based on their precise business needs that they have. And co-managed services can help your prospects avoid expensive and unexpected downtime. Because a big problem that continues to face internal IT organizations today is they do have too much work to do and too little time and too few resources to get it all done. A lot of times IT departments, they're struggling with really two competing sets of priorities. The first one being, how do you go about implementing the strategic vision of the company that's going to help grow the business? And this is a vision that comes from the direction of the CEO and other members of the leadership team. And in trying to implement, their special pro-growth projects and initiatives that need to get done to expand the business, how does the internal IT team then continue to keep up with all the day-to-day stuff that has to get done to keep the network safe, functioning, running reliably in order to keep the employees working and productive? Because an ill-performing network, that's a result of lack of maintenance, lack of attention. That is what contributes to failed devices a lot of the times. Lack security and the unexpected and possibly prolonged periods of downtime for employees. And there was a Veeam 2020 data protection trends report that said an hour of downtime can range anywhere between $61,000 to $68,000 an hour. So it may seem like a logical solution to the problem could be for the organization to just go out and hire and throw another body at the problem. But that may not be the best use of those salary dollars. You can convince them that there is a better way to spend that budget allocation than just hiring another new general IT resource that may come with a lack of direction or a lack of purpose. Because we all know that just having more bodies doesn't necessarily mean that all the work gets done. So by bringing in an MSP and their team to work with the internal IT team versus just hiring kind of a single new resource, the organization, they can share the load by dividing and conquering so that all the work that has to get done gets done. Because as the MSP, you're bringing a very defined role and set of responsibilities, defined best practices, defined SOWs, SOPs that can help the company meet and achieve, both sets of priorities. Neither priority gets neglected and neither priority gets pushed aside or handled poorly. Everyone has a purpose, everyone has a direction, and they know and understand what needs to get done. And so in this case, everyone wins. The CEO gets their pro-growth projects implemented on time, and the critical network maintenance that has to also get done doesn't get neglected. So the employees remain working, productive, helping the organization avoid that very expensive downtime bill of, let's call it $61,000 an hour. And another response that you can give if you hear, yeah, maybe we just might hire someone new, or this sounds too expensive. And this is continuing in the vein of demonstrating cost savings to them. Your co-managed IT services, it can provide an improved cost structure for their organization through the elimination of expensive tool sets and the implementation of better automation procedures, which could really eliminate that need for them to hire another resource in the first place. Because oftentimes enterprise point solutions, they can be very expensive to purchase and to maintain, especially at the enterprise level. But a big benefit of the co-managed model is the MSP, they bring their own software platforms to use. So there's no capital outlay that has to be made. There's no ongoing maintenance support that has to get paid to those point solution providers that maybe the organization is currently paying for today. And depending on how that co-managed arrangement is structured, the company would just pay a monthly subscription fee to the MSP, which would then include access and possible use of the MSP's tool sets. And then it becomes the MSP's responsibility to handle, all the ongoing software and maintenance costs. This is an expense that gets transferred over to the MSP and becomes an expense that the organization would then no longer need to worry about. So a big advantage of leveraging the MSP's tool sets is the internal IT, they no longer need to invest the time and spend the cycles evaluating different tool sets that might get used internally, because you as the MSP, you've already done that. So you can highlight for them that you've already done all the testing, you've done the vetting, you've selected the best-in-class monitoring and security tool sets that are available in the marketplace today, and your team is already fully trained up on how to use them. So they don't even need to invest time in training up their own team and how to use those tool sets themselves. And another big labor time saving is aspect, with the tool sets that you've chosen to use within your own MSP, because you're using them to support your own traditional managed services clients, you've established very strong relationships with those vendors that you can leverage when support is needed. And because of these established vendor relationships, you have more resources at your disposal that you can fall back on, which is going to help provide that exceptional support experience for their team whenever it might be needed. And then also by leveraging the MSP software package and all of its automation capabilities, this can help make the internal IT team, the organization, run more efficiently, which could help alleviate that need of hiring an additional employee in the first place, letting really the software do the work that the software can do instead of hiring and throwing a body at it. So at the end of the day, by working with an MSP that has the right tool sets in a co-managed partnership, the MSP can help implement some additional internal efficiencies to the IT department while working to ensure that the company, they avoid a lot of that unnecessary costly downtime in the process as well. And another objection you could possibly hear, I think we can just figure out a way to handle this ourselves. And I really look at this as that dreaded, yeah, we're just going to keep the status quo type of response. And so a possible response for this could be, why continue to struggle when we can help your team be more effective and productive in their roles, by leveraging technology, its automation capabilities, along with our technical best practices, we can provide relief, we can help lighten the load of your existing IT team, all while creating a better user experience for everyone. And this is where, referring back to the notes that you took earlier in those discovery meetings, where you documented the different pain points, the challenges that were communicated to you during that conversation, all that will be helpful so you can recite back to them to remind them what they told you about earlier, what was bothering them. Because the goal here is to really demonstrate how your co-managed IT partnership can create a better user experience for everyone, the internal IT team, the employees, the senior leadership team, the organization's end customers benefit from this. Because the internal IT team is struggling to keep up with everything, that's going to probably create a ripple effect as a result, which could negatively impact the rest of the business. And so you want to outline how your co-managed model can help improve this. And so first, your co-managed partnership can help improve employee morale. From the internal IT perspective, they get more exciting work because they're freed up to be able to offload all that mundane, routine, tedious tasks over to the MSP to handle. And that's freeing them up and giving them the bandwidth to really work on more stimulating and funner, I don't think funner is a word, but funner projects that truly interest them. And then for more senior members of the internal IT team, they get to work on projects that truly align and take advantage of their advanced skill sets and training. And that may stop them from possibly looking elsewhere, for work and maybe jumping to greener pastures. So co-managed, that type of relationship can really help with improving employee morale and retainment and reduce employee technical churn. Can also help increase employee productivity. So from the employee perspective, they get optimally functioning workstations, laptops that work. It's giving them the stability and the ability to really work anytime from anywhere without really having to worry about unexpected downtime that comes from a poor performing network or some sort of undetected cyber threat. They can feel confident that their access into the company's network, it's safe, secure, and they're not unintentionally exposing the organization to undue risk. Can also help accelerate the implementation timeline of critical pro-growth projects that the senior leadership team may be planning to execute. And so from the senior leadership team's perspective, their role is, they're focused on moving the business forward. They're focused on driving the strategic direction of the organization. And this requires a highly functioning network and for the internal IT team to have the requisite bandwidth and skill sets to implement all of those technical projects that's going to assist in their digital transformation and expansion plans. So if the internal IT, if they continue to be bogged down with the day-to-day stuff, this is really splitting and limiting their focus and attention. So by working with an MSP, the MSP can either, take on the expansion projects on behalf of the organization, or they can take over the repetitive daily tasks that also need to get done. So either way, entering into a co-managed partnership can almost effectively double the productivity of the internal IT team without having to incur a large investment in HR. And then it can also help create a better customer support and purchasing experience, and possibly could lead to improved revenues. And for the organization's end customers, customers are the bread and butter of any successful business, right? When customers need help or if they want to make a purchase, they want to be able to do these things in as quick and efficient manner as possible. They don't want to have to deal with wait times. They don't want to deal with delays because something is wrong with your network infrastructure that's preventing your employees from assisting them. That makes for an incredibly frustrating end user experience. And that depending on the severity of the downtime or network, it may actually cause your customers to move to one of your competitors instead. So if the internal IT department, if they are struggling, there's nothing wrong with exploring options on how to address the challenges that they're experiencing, and the co-managed partnership could be that viable option for their consideration. So deciding to remain with that status quo or the way things are now and just trying to make do, that can impact quite a few different stakeholders across the business and impact the overall growth potential of the organization. So I want to have a good way to respond if you get that dreaded status quo question. And so again, lots of other objection handling responses for the program specific offerings that are in there around co-managed patch, backup, EDR that I did not touch on today. I was trying to kind of keep it at the generalist level. But if you're looking for more program specific responses, again, make sure you download and check out the playbook. And then step 7 is really about measuring and tracking our goals for our go-to-market strategy. Because without defined goals, it's going to be hard to tell if our strategy is working. So there's just a couple of KPIs that I want to mention that you may want to track to determine how successful your foray into the co-managed market has been. And so we're really going to talk about 2 sets of goals, 2 sets of tracking metrics for your co-managed services. The first is going to help set goals and track success of your co-managed in-person event. So kind of all that event in a box stuff. And then the second set is just to track the overall success and growth of your co-managed business model. And so looking at group 1, setting goals and objectives to track the success of your co-managed in-person event. So you can use them to help improve kind of the overall event experience for next time, because I really truly hope there will be a next time. KPI number 1, event registration versus target. So based on the venue chosen, whether you do the boardroom versus the restaurant, versus a much larger venue, you want to set the target number of companies that you want to see attend your event, and then set your registration target from there. So again, going back to what I was saying earlier, do you want to speak to a room that has 50, 60, 70 prospects in it? Or would you rather keep it more intimate and speak to a room that only has 15 to 20 prospects in it? And then you set your target from there. But in either case, it's always good to set your event registration target around 10 to 15% higher than your attendance target, because obviously we want to account for people that maybe register but don't attend. And then looking at the registration list to see who exactly has registered and who hasn't, which industries seem to be the most interested, which role types seem to be most receptive to the event invitation. Are we getting more C-suite in attendance, more technical? Does it seem to be 50-50? We want to track this. KPI number 2, event attendance versus target. So based on the people that registered, what percentage actually attended the event? And most importantly, we want to make sure that for those that registered but didn't attend for whatever reason, that sales is following up with each of those companies no later than the next day to see if they can book a one-on-one meeting, just to kind of fill you in on what you missed. This is just another alternative option that you want to provide. Number 3, how effective was the various forms of event marketing tactics that you used to help populate the event? So depending on the tactics you use, whether you use the emails, whether you had your sales team do the proactive call campaign, whether you did the social posts, website registration, maybe you did the direct mail postcards, which of those methods garnered the best registration return? And then what method didn't work or didn't seem to work very well in generating registrations? So you do want to make sure that your team is tracking where the event registration came from so that you can determine, what is working well and what worked best for your event marketing approach for next time. And then KPI number 4, number of sales qualified leads generated versus your target objective. So here I want to look at how many post-event initial discovery meetings was the team able to book. KPI number 5, pipeline generated versus the target. How many opportunities were created afterwards as a result of those post-event initial discovery meetings, meaning that after that initial discovery meeting took place, how many follow-up meetings were scheduled? And then if you can get that second meeting, that's where we can start trying to figure out, what is the potential revenue that's associated with that opportunity. That's when it becomes a real opportunity, when you can get kind of that beyond that initial discovery and you get to that second meeting. KPI number 6, new customers acquired versus target. So how many new co-managed clients are you hoping to sign on as a result of your event? And then KPI number 7 is, how many did you ultimately close as a result of your event? So what was your close ratio because of your event? And then KPI number 8, event feedback surveys received versus the number of people that attended, because it is important to track and review, those who attended and get their feedback. And then hopefully there are some suggestions there for improvements for next time. And then KPI number 9, customer acquisition cost per customer. So though the number of new customers acquired is an important KPI to track, to determine your overall event success, you also want to track the cost per customer acquired, because being aware of the amount of time, money, and resources required to close an event source deal, that is a pretty important indicator of your event's impact to the bottom line. So here you want to track, the SDRs and the sales time that was spent proactively calling into prospects, marketing's time creating and managing the event marketing materials, the mailing costs, again, if part of your strategy was to print and mail out postcards, all of the costs of holding the event itself, all the time that went into all those follow-up meetings to close the sale afterwards. We want to track all of this. And then we want to divide it by the number of new contract customers that we were able to get, so that will help us determine the overall cost it took to acquire them. And then based on this, you would use this number to make any adjustments or improvements for next time. So I just kind of threw in an example here. Say that you determined that the overall cost of your event was $20,000, taking in all of those sales and marketing expenses. And through the work of your sales team, and we'll say over the next 90 days, you're able to sign on 4 new co-managed clients from the event. Your customer acquisition cost per customer from this event, it would be $5,000 per customer. And then KPI number 10, we want to calculate the ROI from the event. So just expanding on this, now let's say that each customer resulted in an average contract of $2,500 a month. So when we analyze this, this gives us $30,000 a year, and we closed 4 of these. So we were able to generate $120,000 in new total annualized MRR for your event. So to calculate the event ROI, all we need to do is subtract the total cost of the event, which was our $20,000, from the total annualized MRR earned, which was $120 in this case, and then divide it by the cost of the event. So in this case, it's $100,000 divided by 20. And so the ROI on this event is 500% or 5 to 1. And according to a couple of sites that I found, demandjump.com being one of them, they actually say that an ROI of 500% is considered a good general benchmark when you're doing a marketing event, in-person event from an ROI perspective. So I thought that was interesting. And then lastly, KPI number 11, event budget versus actual spend, because just to get an idea as to how realistic or unrealistic the initial budget was, so you could set a more realistic budget for next time. Maybe there were things that you missed, or maybe things that you didn't account for, or maybe you overestimated your costs, but either way, it's good to track these. And then looking at group number 2, setting goals, objectives to kind of track the overall success of your co-managed line of business. And so this is really about asking yourself, where do you want to see your co-managed business in the next 12 months? And so a lot of these are going to be similar ones that you should already be tracking for your traditional managed services line of business. We're just kind of flipping it to measure the co-managed line of business now. So, tracking or setting a goal of, how many new co-managed clients do you want to sign on over the next 12 months? Looking at revenue targets, how much new MRR are you aiming to generate in the next 12 months? You always want to be tracking the average deal size of your co-managed MRR contract so you can see what size of clients and what kind of businesses you're bringing on, because we always want to be aiming to improve our average deal size. And then again, looking at the different marketing campaigns that you're doing around building awareness and interest in your co-managed line of business. So determining again what marketing metrics you're going to measure, what tactics are working well to generate leads for your MSP, really tracking where your co-managed leads coming from. Are they coming from email? Are they coming from call campaigns? Are they coming from social media? Which is driving traffic to your website. Again, we want to track all of this. And then what sales metrics are you going to track as you navigate that prospect through the sales funnel? So number of initial appointments, number of follow-up appointments, what's your close ratio? And then just some keys to success. So when it comes to talking about some keys to success as it relates to getting your co-managed services off the ground, first and foremost, it is going to come from selecting the right set of customers to partner and do business with. So making sure that whoever you choose to partner with, that they're a good fit for you and for your business, because both sides do need to see value in the relationship. It just can't be kind of a one-way street where, maybe you're taking on this air of superiority, but conversely, you also can't be seen as the dumping ground, for all the menial grunt work that the internal IT team doesn't want to do. And so you can accomplish this by spending the time creating your ideal client profile, define the types of companies that you want to have as customers, and then being sure that you're communicating this to everyone on your team, and then to be disciplined enough to stick to this profile, because it is okay to say no to a prospect if they don't align to this target customer profile, because by saying no, all you're doing is freeing up time to continue to work on attracting clients that you do want to have as clients. And then making sure that your messaging is on point. As you create your marketing messaging, as you're working on your sales messaging, making sure that you're speaking your audience's language. So we want to think about, what does CEO, what does CFO, or someone in IT leadership, what do they really care about? And so looking at what CEOs primarily care about, they care about profitability, growth, scalability, mitigating any and all exposure to risk, because risk can impede or inhibit growth for their organization. And then what does IT leadership care most about? They care about being able to successfully complete important IT projects in a timely manner. They care about competently and efficiently handling the day-to-day tasks that are needed to properly care for their network infrastructure. They care about creating and maintaining a reliable and dependable network environment to keep their employees working and productive. They care about keeping morale high, keeping their technical employees engaged and excited to come to work. They care about reducing employee churn and striving to keep the skilled technical talent that they already have. So they're concerned about creating a positive work-life balance. And they're also concerned, like the CEO, with mitigating the risk exposure and doing what they can to keep the business and its critical data safe and secure. And then some keys to success to get the co-managed services off the ground. Prior to your go-to-market strategy you undertake, making sure that you've taken care of the marketing basics. And so what do I mean by that? Making sure that you've updated your website. Make sure that your website contains, the right messaging, the verbiage about your new co-managed services offerings, that you've articulated the benefits of your new services to the mid and upper enterprise companies that you're planning on targeting. Making sure that you've taken the time to update your LinkedIn company profile, your personal profile, your Google business profile to announce the new direction in terms of the services that you're offering. Making sure that you've collected sufficient amounts of social proof that you can use in your marketing and sales efforts. If you have 1 or 2 co-managed clients today and you happen to gain those clients organically, leverage all that experience and those relationships and gather testimonials and those client reviews. And then if you don't have any co-managed clients today, then gather as many reviews as you can, from your existing clients in the verticals that you're targeting that speak to your professionalism, your expertise, and then document, if you can, how you've explicitly helped their business. And then as much as MSPs might fight it, when we're moving upward into co-managed, it's basically equivalent to spinning up an entirely new line of business. And so it has to be created as such. You can do all the marketing in the world, but marketing alone is only going to do so much. So we have to create as well a proactive sales outreach motion if this is something you don't have in place for your MSP today, meaning we have to assign someone within the organization to start making phone calls into those companies that appear on our prospect hit lists. So again, whether you're doing the calling yourself to populate the event or you're just looking to book appointments, this activity has to be done because the idea of any type of marketing that you do is to build interest and awareness in your target audience. Marketing, it's all about having the right messaging directed at the right audience at the right time. But the flip side of that coin is that when it comes to sales, businesses are only going to buy when they're ready to buy. So although you will need to build and implement a marketing strategy to start promoting your co-managed IT services, we also want to complement that with a proactive outbound call campaign as well, because you never know when your target audience of IT directors, CTOs, CEOs, business owners, when they're going to have that aha moment, where they suddenly recognize that there's a resource, there's a skills, there's some sort of knowledge gap in their internal IT department that needs to be addressed, and they start researching options on ways to deal with this gap. And your perfectly timed phone call by your SDR telemarketer into that organization could just be exactly what they're looking for. So while a consistent marketing approach is needed, I really strongly encourage you to augment that with an SDR motion as well to kind of help accelerate its growth. And according to Deloitte research, they say that the global IT outsourcing spending by businesses is expected to reach $519 billion in 2023. And that's a 22% increase over 2019's numbers. IT services make up 72% of all global outsourcing contract values, and 83% of IT leaders are considering outsourcing their security efforts to MSPs as a result of budget cuts, staff reductions, and increased cyber threats. So really the stats are there. You know, businesses are, and they're going to continue outsourcing more and more of their IT and cybersecurity to MSPs. And you want to do what you can to capture some of that lucrative market for yourself. But you do need a plan. So you can capitalize on this market opportunity and make the most of it. So now that, you know, we're kind of wrapping up this whole series, you know, what should you be doing next? If you feel that this is a market that you want to pursue, or maybe do a better job at targeting, especially for those that said they are just starting out, feel free to retake this boot camp. If there are certain areas or topics that you want to listen to again, you can find the on-demand versions of this boot camp and all of my other boot camps in the MSP Institute. The nice thing is that you can fast forward a lot of the sections in the Institute. If you happen to miss part 1, you may want to go back and listen to that as well. If you haven't done so yet, download a copy of the Co-Managed Digital Playbook from the GoToWebinar handout section. Make sure that you've downloaded the go-to-market planning template as well, so you can start using it to kind of map out your own strategy on how you're going to take these to market. If you're going to do an event, check out the co-managed event in a box. Again, it is found within the playbook and the market builder material to help you in your promotion. And as always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your partner success manager, reach out to myself, register for my next round of office hours where I can help you with any of these questions. And then once you've completed the steps and you are ready to kind of move on, and you're looking for guidance as to the next set of boot camps that you may want to take as part of your growth planning process, going back to my journey, the next sets would be kind of the lead gen. So there is cracking the code to lead gen part 1, building your marketing strategy, cracking the code to lead gen part 2, building your telesales strategies. They're highlighted in yellow. These ones are available on demand as well. Well, thank you to everyone that hung out with me this morning. Absolutely appreciate it. As always, you can connect with me on LinkedIn or on email for any questions that you have, especially as you start working through this. All the best, and have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Thanks, everyone.